Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Shred the Veil. We just want to do a short little introduction to our dad, Ray DeStephen. He's going to be coming up on some future episodes, so we wanted to introduce him to our audience here. So, welcome to the show, Dad.
Thanks for having me. You guys got a great thing going here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited for what you're going to be presenting later on in the next many episodes of Shred the Veil. But first, we just wanted to talk and get a little bit of background. So, Derek and I, born and raised in the Richmond, Virginia area with our parents, and then Derek and I both went to Virginia Tech and became mechanical engineers, following in our father's engineering footsteps. He's a civil engineer, and yeah, then I moved on to Pittsburgh, and Derek moved out to California, and now in Texas. Yeah, that's kind of our logistically our little quick background.
Yeah, no, that's good as far as, our general sense of who we became, and a lot of it had to do with our dad and just kind of showing us the way and trying to do the right thing and make something of ourselves, be able to, be independent and work hard and achieve what we want in life. So we owe that to our dad, I believe, for the most part, with our mom, of course, helping us in other ways. And so, Dad, would you like? Could you just give us like a little bit, just quickly, how your background is, where you grew up, kind of
All
get
right.
a nice sense for who you are.
Well, so I was one of six. I was the oldest boy in the family. Great childhood. Written it up in 26 pages worth of with replete with pictures. I think you guys have read that whole story. So it was a great childhood and all that. And didn't wasn't sure what I was gonna do in college, but I chose engineering. I won't go through that story, but I was in civil engineering. Uh, Graduated from Ohio University, then graduate school at Ohio State, and moved east with the company I'm with. So I've been on the East Coast ever since, mostly in Virginia. And I was kind of shocked when you guys went into engineering because I always try to preach to you that whatever you have a passion for, that's what you should do. So it's kind of surprised. 'Cause I never breathed a word about you should be an engineer or anything, and here you both became one. So that was good. Um, Trying to think of you guys are pretty good kids. I remember us going over to people would have us over for dinner, and they couldn't believe how you guys. In fact, they would comment how great you guys were. You didn't make any trouble or go goofing around or tear up things, and we heard that on several occasions. So pretty good kids, except for I think Dan, you started this whole thing, started jumping off bridges. I don't know if any of your audience has heard that one before, but you got your sister and your brother into that who followed along, and fortunately, none of you got killed, so I guess that's a plus.
Harmless recreational activity.
Exactly.
And he's still
Anyway,
doing it. Oh, and still at it too to this day, apparently.
yes,
Yeah,
bungee
like fun.
jumping and jumping off, out of airplanes and all kinds of things. So eating habanero peppers till his guts hurt and all kinds
Seeking
of
the,
things. Trying to kill himself one way or the other. I can't believe he's still here. We're talking to him now. It's a miracle in itself.
seeking the thrills of life along the way. Yeah.
Yes, well, it's been good for you.
So, but yes, when we grew up, we've said a lot on this channel our story with our grandfather, our mom's dad, and our experiences with him coming forward, talking to us about the UFO topic. Derek and I were teenagers in the mid late '90s when he first started talking about that, and how it caught us off guard and really surprised us. And we had never heard him talk about anything like that, or really anybody talk about anything like that being true. So it was pretty fascinating for us, a little mind blowing stories that we heard. Um, so I wanted to ask you, Dad, how is that from your perspective and your knowledge of Daniel Salter as your father-in-law when you got married, and how that relationship went, and the UFO topic, how that came to be in your life when he started mentioning it?
Well, you're talking about a very fascinating guy, that's for sure. Uh, Back in 1979, a year that you'll remember is coming into the world. Um, his first first thing he did was make a deal. He said, "Hey, if you name your son after me, I'll give you $1,000." And of course, I was too stupid to up at the 1,500 or something, so I just went with $1,000, and you became a Daniel DeStephen, after named after him.
Good
And
choice.
for wedding for wedding present, he gave us his what he called the boogie van, a nice full size van. Had captain's chairs, all plush inside. He really did it up inside. He had used it for several years, and he gave it to us as a wedding present. And so in my worked for Newport News Shipbuilding, and through the various architects and engineers, we had Navy contractors. We worked for NAVFAC and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and so forth. And so on one of those occasions, we're going to Langley Air Force Base. We're going to do an F-18, a hangar for them back in the late 70s. And I don't know if I gave my name and so forth, what we're doing in advance, so they knew I was coming, I guess. But when I came to the gate, I was ready to, I stopped and ready for him to ask me all these questions and sign stuff and everything else. And he was just like waving me through, and I couldn't understand why. You don't even know who the heck I am. How you waving me through? And so I
Into
kind of
this,
asked him, I said, what? I said, it's all it takes? I just drive in. He goes, yep. And he kind of pointed down to the license plate. Then later on, I checked the license plate, and it said NAS thing on there, which I didn't know what it meant or anything else. So, but I guess he just let me right in. And typically, when we go to those places, even Newport News Shipbuilding, where they, making naval ships and nuclear subs for the Navy, they have certain security you have to go through. I remember one time we were in there, and they're pushing, tubes into the ground to get samples. And to preserve them, we'd melt wax and make a top and a bottom to enclose them. And it took us sometimes like a day to convince the guards that it wasn't some kind of bomb or something, just a steel tube full of dirt, and we're trying to go take it back to the lab to test, and they wouldn't let us out. So this guy at Langley did just wave me through without even asking me anything about myself or anything. It was like kind of unusual to me. It's like,
So this was Langley, you said, not Norfolk Navy Base?
well, that's what I'm not sure. I thought it was Langley Air Force Base. We did F-18s right in the end of 78, 70s. But we did a lot of work at Norfolk Naval Shipyard too, Naval Air Station. So I'm not sure which occasion it was, but I'm thinking it might have been Langley. But it was one
Either
of
one's
those.
pretty impressive. That's a big
Yeah.
deal.
It was one of those that,
Well,
anyway, I guess I had the right sticker on the van to give me
So your van was getting access to all these military bases when you didn't even know that was an option for you.
And because I had another car at the time, he was taking that in, and then one time I took the old boogie van in, as he called it, and got right on in quick.
Hmm.
But he was quite a character, and he'd go take me through the whole thing. I mean, he could talk for hours on the subject of extraterrestrials and so forth. And remember once we were on the back deck, and he was going on and on. He talked about the grays and all these things that didn't make any sense to me. And I mean, it made sense, but at the time I wasn't skeptical about extraterrestrial life. I mean, there's some 300 billion stars in the Milky Way alone, and
right.
or 400 billion, whatever the number is, all with I guess they have an average of 4.3 planets. So that's just so many opportunities for a life, even as we know, the carbon-based life, carbon meaning of life, but it could be other, base life-based elements like nitrogen-based life or something else that we don't even know about. But we're familiar with carbon-based because that's what we have here on planet Earth. So with all those possibilities, I mean, to have the same thing that we have, if you think about how 4.3 billion years to, the planet's been here, and the atmosphere had been totally different in the past. It was at one point for over a billion years had like 20% methane, 25% carbon dioxide, nitrogen about 40%, and then a long period of time for over a billion and a half years, it was all essentially 98% nitrogen atmosphere, and as a small plants and so forth in the sea started producing oxygen. We had, like less than 1% of oxygen for over 1.5 million years. And then as those things got plants growing on Earth and all that kind of stuff, all of a sudden oxygen levels went up to what they are today, about, 21% or whatever. So who's to say that that can't happen? No, that took us 4 billion years for that to happen here on Earth, but with 400 billion chances, or times 4.3, there's a lot of possibility that life's out there. So I never doubted that there was some other life out there, whether it's the form as we knew it or not. But the only thing that got me in all of his and Dan's discussions was the whole thing about, did they come here? Are they here? And so that's why I was skeptical about it. I said, the odds of even at near the speed of light, the millions of years it would take crossing the Milky Way to get here, even knowing that we're we're out in the suburbs somewhere, right? The sun and
Right.
our whole planetary system. So why would anybody out there happen to come upon us? What's the odds of that? That were minute. So I was skeptical about, does someone actually come here, and why would they even come here? And they'd have to have some way of traveling that was pretty near the speed of light. And he talked about that, anti-gravity stuff and all that sort of thing. So that's why I questioned when I said, it takes so long to get here. If they wanted to come here, how could they do it? He talked about anti-gravity and all that made it at least feasible. So I wasn't doubting the possibility. I just didn't. I was always skeptical about the feasibility of, okay, why the heck they come into Earth? But a lot of things but then as he's talking for, again, hours on end in great detail, it's like, well, this guy knows something. I mean, he's had some experience that I can't deny. And he was.
So did he ever say to you, I worked on this project. I was involved at this in this stage in my career. This happened to be something I was working on. He never said that in any way.
Well, he said in a general sense, but again, I wasn't sure what he was referring to and all those kind of things. Certainly, I don't think he told me anything that wasn't in his, the book that he ended up writing later on. So I don't think I doubt that he gave me any information that he didn't tell the world that only I knew, and I wish I remembered it. And I do wish I had remembered more, but I think he probably spelled that out in whatever he was telling me was in his book. I don't think there was something.
Yeah, well, and in his book, I asked that question because his book, he's more of like, in general, these are the projects that was going on. This is the history of the UFO phenomenon. But he didn't go very much to say, I was specifically involved in this. He does a couple times, but still, he doesn't give dates and exactly project names and people.
But he was
and
even
stuff.
telling me about the new generation jet pumpkin seed and all these other things that I hadn't never heard of and wasn't out in the public yet.
Right.
He seemed to know all that stuff.
Mm.
And
This was like, what's the time frame when he started naming stuff like that?
Well, it could have been anywhere from the from 76 through the 80s, into the 90s, really. But there's some of those things, like some of those planes where he was talking about that. And I was trying, of course, there wasn't the internet. I could just look up and see if this is already out there or not. But I certainly never heard of it before. And later on, I read about it.
That gives a lot of credibility because we're talking years before the internet is even a thing, and he's talking about all the stuff like he knows.
Oh yeah, definitely before the internet. Yeah.
So right in the beginning, you met him around 76, right before marrying mom, and that's basically when he started even mentioning stuff to you. He'd just say stuff like that.
Yeah, he was living down in Cedar Hill, south of Dallas. We'd go down there and visit and all that kind of stuff. He's kind of started mentioning things there, but nothing in great detail, not kind of laying it all out like he did later on. We'd just be sitting on the back deck up here. So we moved here. It was in 94. And I remember on the back deck, he was going through a whole rendition for like a couple hours worth. That was had to have been after 94, so mid-90s. Well, before that, he mentioned this kind of stuff. And of course, he didn't have any book out or anything like that at that time.
So would it be like just after dinner sometime, or like you would just be happy to sit around and it'd almost be like, okay, he's going to start lecturing now and go into a whole spiel and
he never did that or try to push it on anybody, anything else. If we're just, okay, so just leisurely, we're just drinking something outside on the porch, whatever, start talking about his experience and talking about the Air Force, and then he did this and that, and they had this, and then he started getting into, you know, he was working radar and all that, and so again, I wish I could again discuss any detailed stuff, but I just don't remember. But I
So
think
he probably didn't mention NRO then, because that wasn't official until 93 or 94.
yeah, nah, he didn't say.
Okay.
I don't remember it anyway that he but,
Okay.
very
So that
fascinating guy, that's for sure. He can go on and on. Just, I mean, very interesting to listen to. Just, but it goes like just all in his head like that, you know.
right.
He didn't go to any book
Now
and reference.
when did he mention the Urantia book to you? And you get into that a little.
That was pretty early on too. Then I got one and kind of went through that, and I gave one to Dad. He loved it, and it was all interesting stuff there as
So
well.
he was able to tie in the whole extraterrestrial thing and the religion as well. It kind of all
Yeah,
tells in one story.
yeah. Now he never made a point of that or tried to make a connection necessarily, but he's the one that got me involved with that or looking into that, which is very fascinating.
Yeah, we have flyers from his storage where he was promoting that he was giving lectures about the Rancher book at the community college and stuff like that
Yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He was an adjunct professor there, I think, or he taught that there. Um, I'm not sure for what
One
length of
other
time.
one other thing to mention or ask is, did he ever show you any documents, photos? Did he ever have anything with him to say, hey, by the way, check this out?
Nah, he never had documents or on him, or he could show me. Of course,
Right.
most when I saw him, he was here. We were on vacation somewhere, not at his house necessarily. But he never went and pulled out a bunch of stuff. Said, "Hey, you got to look at this." Never did that.
Right.
So I
Should
never
I go
saw
ahead
him.
and pull this up, Dan, real quick?
Sure, yeah.
Before we close, I think this is important because I just found this trying to put together a presentation. Just give me 1 second. Let me clear this. Let me just expand this. But it's when I do this we've been doing this presentation a couple times, and I never realized what's on this document is there's a complete tie connection from what I can tell. So can you see this here?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Well, here you're looking at it's somewhat controversial because, of course, do people really think Majestic 12 is real or not? There's controversy of that, and there's a controversy of, is this document legit? And it's basically a standard operating procedure manual for the extraterrestrial entities and the technology for identifying the craft, for any recovery, what to do, disposal and recovery of the craft to clean it up after you find it. And it goes into biological entities, all that stuff. It's all here. And this is just interesting that it says Majestic 12 group, and then it says Washington 25 DC, and then there's a date, April 7th, 1954. But why? We don't know what that Washington 25 DC is, but if you go here to this license plate that you had on that van, it actually states WA 25 DC, and then it
Hmm.
has of that unit he was
Wow.
involved with.
Yeah.
So I don't know of any other tie that people can make, but this is physical evidence, and it's your testimony, and obviously you're not making, you don't even need to make anything up. By the way, you're like an expert witness on however many dozens of cases. I don't think you're gonna just make up a story, but that's something, that's the only real tangible proof I think we've got, that he was tied to something like this.
So
Uh,
it was his plate, or where's that license plate from?
This is the plate. At least this is the plate he had from Taos
Ah,
on that Suburban he had. So he had more than one plate because this was his Suburban. So why would he have more than one as well? That kind of tells something else. It wasn't just a gift if he was able to, have a copy of one, or put it on multiple vehicles. Because the story is that van that we had, you ended up just having to get it to some dealership because it was breaking down or wouldn't make it right on the
yeah, we
way.
traded it in with
Right.
my bosses had a friend in New Holland, Pennsylvania, who said we'd get one there, just trade it in. So we were heading to the Northeast to visit, and it was hot in the summer, and that van didn't have any air conditioning in the back, so it would be really bad for you guys. And
I remember that. Yeah.
and so we said, well, we've had this long enough. So we just, on the way up, traded it in. He made the deal right there because he's a friend. We were able to just drive off. He had a red one and a blue one. We took the blue one and took
Yeah.
off, and
Yeah.
they got the boogie van.
Okay. With the
Wow.
license plate. Yeah. Okay.
So some lucky guy or some dealership or some junkyard sitting there with this license plate that could probably get them into anywhere they want.
Probably.
Um, that's fascinating. So I put Norfolk Naval Station in this slide. I might have to change that just because
Yeah, well, could be, but I just remember. I just remember also going into the Langley, and so I'm not sure which one it was.
well, Langley's just as big. I mean, that's a big deal because Pop-Out Dan Salter would always say that originally all the intelligence was at Langley, and he would go there and he would be part of that. And that's basically the Pentagon, access to, clearance to those facilities. So that's a pretty big deal.
The early 80s, we went to the other facilities, Naval Air Station and so forth. But Langley, again, when did you guys reckon F-18 came out? In 76 or 7 or something like that?
I should know this. Late 70s, like early 80s, I think.
Yeah, so something like 78 or 9 that had to go in there. And that, I just wish I could remember the gate and going in. I remember being there talking with the guy, but I don't remember the entrance that well to know which one it was.
Yeah. Sounds like we got a little research to do. We can find out from like the other slide, Derek, you had with the Majestic document having Washington 25 DC, what the significance of that 25 is, of what location that's referring to, or what's indicated
Right.
with that, why it might be on his license plate as well. And then, like, when did the F-18 come out? So we'll know kind of, well, this was a general time frame of when we had that van, so he had it obviously earlier than that. But
So at least back to the mid 70s, he had that license plate, and he probably, and if he retired from the Air Force in 68, then it's likely he would have had it at his retirement or within that time frame sometime.
that's what he said. It was for retirement. His
Yeah.
gig.
Yeah. So that makes sense. And the other thing I did find out, this document, at least online, there's a version of it that has the reference to Ryan and Bob Wood, as these are the guys that are trying to confirm if this is real, if these documents are real or not. And their conclusion was these have to be genuine based on all the information they've gathered. It seems to be genuine. So Ryan and Bob Wood, they are kind of like the leaders of trying to figure out if this stuff is real. But that's also significant because here's a letter from 99, a correspondence with Dan and this person that's getting him in touch with Ryan and Bob Wood from 1999 to discuss the MJ-12 documents. So that seems pretty significant that he obviously felt he had something to share that was worth their time to discuss.
Yeah, he had information for them with respect to the Majestic 12 documents. So that's kind of significant. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really all I wanted to get out to everybody in our audience, to know the direct link and have it come straight from the source of what happened with you in that van. So
All right. Well, sorry, I couldn't be of more help, but
no,
Yeah, it
that
was good.
very
It's good to talk to you and to get your insights on your relationship with him and what that was like. Because we've told our story, but it's interesting to hear it from
yeah,
another perspective.
it's always fascinating. Whether you buy into it or not, you can't help but say this guy. Somehow this guy's got some intricate knowledge and it's detailed. And again, he can go on for hours and not stop and not look at anything or notes, or he just it was great.
Wow.
Yeah, and it helps the audience see that, we grew up a pretty normal childhood and background, and it's not like we were into any of this stuff until, he really passed it along to us. So
Yeah,
it's pretty fascinating.
you guys
And
had no idea, did you?
yeah, but we got us interested, obviously, for the rest of our adulthood lives, trying to figure out what's going on? What's the truth behind all of this stuff, and made us question everything. So we're still on that search, and now we have our dad, Ray DeStephen, who's going to share some great stuff pertaining to nutrition coming up next time. So
Yeah, we're gonna shred the veil on some stories that have been out there, the main narrative since the 1950s about health, and so yeah, we're gonna kind of uncover some
What I would
truths
call the
there.
big fat lie.
Big fat lie. That's right.
What I call the big fat lie.
we
Expose the
didn't
big
mention
fat lie.
though. We didn't mention that you have a secret clearance, right? Out of all those years working as a civil engineer, you ended up with a secret clearance.
Yeah, well, our firm did a lot of government work, various agencies that I can't even tell you. So I had a top, because I was president in the late 90s, I had to have a top secret clearance. So if they had issues or whatever, they could come to the top of our firm to get an okay to do this or do that or change something or do something. So I had it because of that, if there was something that came up. But I wasn't one of the guys that had the real above top secret clearance, that you were actually in there, intercompartmentalized clearances and all that. But
So it was top secret. It wasn't just secret clearance. It was top secret.
right, yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a pretty big deal.
And I ended it about 10 years ago because I want to keep up every year you got to keep up and do this, that, and the other. And I said, I'm not using it. So what's the point of having it anymore? So I got rid of it.
So you helped with some bases too, more or
Well,
less?
well, a lot of that is for agencies that in DC in particular and other places that we were dealing with to help them come up with, well, I shouldn't say, but
No pressure.
Were these spaces underground? Could you say that?
yeah, dealing with underground things and how we can detect stuff. Like if you were, like, okay, how are we going to keep the U.S. safe from intruders and so forth so along the border? Well, we get something underground that's detecting movements and tunneling and stuff, for example, then they'd be interested in that. Things like that. But
Okay.
Very interesting.
So it probably opened your eyes to a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes.
yeah, well, in a lot of it, again, I wasn't even privy to. Or the other guys had clearances above me where they're not going to tell me about it. I only came if something happened where they needed approval to do something else beyond whether it's financial, whatever, then I could give the go ahead as a company and they could go do it.
Okay.
That's the only reason I had it. So we did about 170 embassies, consulates around the world, and those guys had clearances for the most part. And I almost went on one of those, but I didn't have to in the end. But
So did it make you start to feel like, okay, maybe what Dan was telling you all those years, that the story's a lot bigger than what we were told on the surface?
And maybe understand how the whole thing works too, with the clearances and all that. And they try to do.
Very compartmentalized, obviously, right?
Yeah, when you get top
well.
secret, it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's
They're
very
big things,
useful.
not let one hand know what the other hand's doing.
Right.
Of course, if power gets out of hand, that's a bad thing, but on the whole, they're trying to make sure the bad guys don't know what we're doing and what we're got coming in the future. So,
Or the public.
right. Yeah, right.
Very good. I think that
All
was a
right.
really useful. Thank you for the help.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, and we look forward to having these presentations from you on the Big Fat Lie coming up. So stay tuned, everyone, for that when they come out.
Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
Until next. See ya.
Now, I want you to ask this. What I've told you, is it going to make any difference in your life? You better wake up, better change, get interested, changing your life.